Welcome to the DNA of Things, where we explore how our potential is unlocked at the intersection of our DNA, environment, and behaviors. By understanding these layers, both individually and collectively, we empower ourselves to make impactful choices that shape our health and well being. Today, we're joined by Jeanine Finelli, an integrative health practitioner and national board certified health and wellness coach. She's also the author of Love Yourself to Health with Gusto, which focuses on the power of self love and empowerment as critical components of health. As the VP of Doable Health, she works to make wellness achievable for everyone through personalized coaching and integrative approaches to sustainable lifestyle change. In this episode, Jeanine shares her inspiring journey from surviving a near fatal car accident to becoming a wellness expert who empowers others to take control of their health. We discuss the importance of self-awareness, the emotional and physical hurdles she overcame, and how she now helps clients build their own dream team of support for lasting wellness. You'll learn practical insights about breaking through mental barriers, the power of self-love, and why living life by design, not default, is key to long-term well-being. Hey, we've got Jeanine Finelli, an integrative health practitioner, national board certified health and wellness coach, author of the book Love Yourself to Health with Gusto, which focuses on holistic health and self-care. Janine's work is emphasizing the power of self-love and empowerment as fundamental components of health and wellness. She's also the VP at Doable Health, a platform designed to make health accessible and achievable by providing individuals with personalized coaching and integrative approaches to support their health journeys through sustainable lifestyle changes. Jeanine, welcome to the DNA of Things.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Well, it's my pleasure to have you. And as we were speaking at the outset, you identified yourself as an atypical guest. And you know what? Everybody's unique on the DNA of things, as measured by our DNA, I guess, unless you're an identical twin. I haven't had any identical twins on yet. But with that being said, one of the things we also discussed, ahead of diving in, is the unfolding of things. In fact, the DNA of things is itself unfolding. I started this because, well, hey, I'm highly educated in DNA. I've spent 25 years thinking about it, but I've deliberately left the title, as we should say, deliberately ambiguous. So the DNA of Things is an ode to David Suzuki's a Canadian scientist, host of a program called The Nature of Things. DNA obviously is the center and the life code out of which all things come. And, what I'm learning in this show is it's very much about how we activate our DNA. That is, how we turn on our stored potential. And, while the high tech, the DNA stuff is really exciting in the last quarter of a century, we're seeing that the high touch component of things is equally important and, in fact, is critically important. The more we come to know ourselves with these scientific tools, we can become much more objective when it comes to, let's say, applying more intuitive approaches. So with that as a, kind of a level set, really interested to know your story. So, I mean, one doesn't just all of a sudden decide to become, let's say, a national board certified health and wellness coach. One doesn't just decide to write a book. And one doesn't just decide to be of service in the way that you are by providing integrative health to individuals. So I'd love to come to know how this became a passion for you.
That is the question that brings me back to my upbringing was wonderful and family and supportive and big Italian family and all the things. And then really the first thing that happened in my life that led me in that trajectory was a near fatal car crash. And I was 16 years old at the time. So it's that call that every parent dreads getting. in the middle of the night. And that's the call that my parents had gotten. So, that kind of fighting for my life started then, my physical life, and really appreciating not having pain in my body, right? It's like a toothache or a backache. You don't know how
Mm.
terrible it is until you have it. And then you're like, oh my God, I wish I didn't have this. So it was healing from that, multiple surgeries, and the doctors telling my parents that I wasn't going to make it. And I remember hearing all that and saying to myself, like, oh, I'm not ready to go. I'm gonna fight whatever fight meant. I was hooked up to a million things lying in a hospital bed, but that will and that will to hold on. So that's when my journey started. And from there it was a lot of figuring out how to feel well in my body and trying all the things. And you pile that on or layer it on top of just being a female who wants to enjoy life and live and maybe have children someday and exercise without pain and do all the things. So I did get to that point where I started to understand my body a little bit better, but I kept winding up back in the hospital with some sort of, situation. And they'd say, well, this is just the way it's always going to be because you've been kind of split in half a little bit and we had to sew you back together. So we'll see ya again. And I thought, well,
Mhm.
that's not going to happen either. So I paid a lot of very close attention to what I was eating, how I was feeling. And then I just developed this passion and said, I can't be the only one who's suffering. For whatever inroad gets you to that place, I can't be the only one that is suffering. And so that kind of started the journey. And have managed my health very well since then. Have even 20 years after that, I wound up in the hospital again from a complication from that auto accident. But I don't I've looked at it as now an invitation to level up my well-being, where there was a time where I felt like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to manage this and I feel this way. But flipping that script on, this is an opportunity to be the healthiest Jeanine that I can. And after that, it was just a series of, going through the physical stuff, then some emotional relationship stuff that really uh, invited me again to love myself and to stand up for myself and set healthy boundaries and not save somebody who's not willing to really save themselves. So I was always that cheerleader. If you need fresh blood, here you go. I got it. Get out of the way. Love conquers all. There's another road. There's another way. Figure it out. And then I realized that my greatest gift is holding space for somebody who wants it,
Mhm.
somebody who does not devalue the intention and the energy and the words and the love and all the things that I give. So I think it was a combination of all those things which led me to write that book, which was Love Yourself to Health with Gusto, which was a wonderful project I did. I think it was published in 2013, so it's about 11 years now. And that was a time in my life when the book was saving me at the same time. I love to write, I love to create, and so that was an opportunity for me to take all of that energy and those thoughts and hope that maybe something in there would help someone else. And I've come a long way since then. But at the time, it was a beautiful opportunity to say, again, I can't be the only one. And yet I feel like a gang of one, but I know I'm not the only one. And so, yeah, it was kind of those things.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Tell me what that statement, "gang of one," what does that mean to you?
To me, Jeremy, gang of one is the hardest walk that I've ever had to do and that I know I will have to do again at different points in my life. It means that you have to be enough. It means that the only like that really matters is the like you give to yourself. It means that you might piss some people off in the process, but the price we pay to clear the way is there's a lot. And yet at the end, it's worth it. So
Mhm.
it's anything that makes you feel crazy or not fit in or alone or no support, but that you just know your higher faculties, your reasoning, your intuition, your consciousness, everything about you is like, go this way.
Mm.
And that is a very lonely walk, but it's the most it's a walk that not everybody is built for. So
Mm,
I have been a gang of one, and I remember at the time reading a quote that said, "Don't be afraid to open your hands and see what stays and what flies away."
mm,
And when you do that and you release the grip on all the people who are supposed to be there and do things and show up in whatever capacity, then you realize that instead of pointing the finger outward, you really do turn it to yourself and you say, what is my responsibility for myself? What can I own? And so it's that constant saying yes, and it's not either or. It's yes, this didn't work out. And yes, maybe this person did or said that, or this happened. And what is my responsibility to myself?
mm.
So
It's interesting you said one of the things you offer your clients is, well, one of your superpower is your ability to hold space. And I mean, my head goes to, well, I mean, even ancient biblical scripture, if you will, where in the very beginning there was nothing, right? And so this whole idea that you're willing to go into that void with somebody, precludes, I think, some kind of like faith in them, insofar as you've taken on this critical role as a health coach, somebody who's willing to not just be sympathetic but empathetic, and kind of go there with the client. I'm curious to know, what kind of clients do you work with, without naming names, and what kind of transformation do you see? I mean, uh, I'll preface it by saying I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, because that's an abyss that I myself have ventured into, and it can be a very, very, very lonely journey. And to have somebody that understands your journey to the best of their ability, and honestly, and will tell you when they see an issue, when they see a blind spot versus a resolve that is warranted. I mean, it's a very tricky place in the entrepreneurial path, because it's folks who are trying to do something that's never been done before. And I suspect that your clientele might echo some of those sentiments that I've just described. But yeah, I'd love to hear about your experience as a life coach, because this seems to be an area that it certainly isn't going away. I mean, there seem to be more and more professionals out there that are helping people through, let's say, non-clinical aspects of their life. So what's that been like for you, and what's that been like for your clients?
great question. And so you understand the mindset of a entrepreneur, right?
Mm, mm,
Um, Closed in, separated, scripted, show up in this capacity, uh, never get to kind of take off the armor sort of
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
So, as a national board certified coach, I've been coaching for 17 years, long before it was get this certification in 6 weeks and do
right,
this, right? Like that's
yeah,
everywhere.
yeah,
Um, and also I'm an integrative health practitioner. So I also work with people and we do at home functional medicine lab testing.
right.
Now, that's just part of it. As you said, it is holding that space for somebody. They have to trust you, and it happens in an instant, right? Sometimes it's long and the person is like inching their way in and they share a little bit, and you're, as a coach, you're putting puzzle pieces together with no judgment, because we all have a story, right? So, but I think for with my clientele, I mean, I can think of everything in between. The executive, that I coached, that was had 130 employees in 13 countries. And how amazing it is for them to be seen, not with the label, not with the awards, not with the private jet, not with the dinners, not with the Super Bowl box tickets, not nobody is I'm not asking anything from them. They're just
Hmm.
coming to that space and saying things in confidence that really are eating away at them, or, just creating that safe place where it's like, you know what, at the end of the day, you got the private jet and I'm sitting at the gate waiting to get on, 2 hours, but we're the same. Like,
Mhm.
we're the same when we think about the struggles, maybe it's for somebody, it's keeping the lights on. For somebody else, it's how they're going to pay for their private yacht, right? The stressors are there for everyone. And social media has a really great way of making us think otherwise. But so creating that space. And then at the other end of the spectrum, I have the individual who is working two jobs and taking care of a mom who has breast cancer, and maybe watching a grandchild on the weekends and trying to burn the candle at both ends and not become depleted herself. So most of my clients are, mid-level executives or, employees. We have a full spectrum of people that we deal with. Some of my clients have worn, uh, goggles and hats and worked in a factory, right? I've done coaching sessions where I've walked in and, blown the sawdust off the desk, right? And cleared away from my computer to coach these people.
Mhm.
So and really at the end of the day, I think the most important thing for a coach, and as the director of coaching, I really focus on this with Doables coaches, is you don't have to know what it's like, but if you coach from the place of the same emotion,
Mhm.
that's where people begin to feel safe. So, for example, if somebody is uh, sharing a story about, uh, her, okay, I had this one client, she was eating bags of candy at 2 a.m. And, it took a few sessions, but then she told me because that's when her boyfriend gets phone privileges and he's in prison. So she stays up,
Mhm.
she waits for him to call. She shared that with me after she felt comfortable. And now another coach might be like, oh my God, I don't even know what to do with that. Right. But if you've ever missed somebody, if you've ever loved somebody, if you've ever tried to see the good in somebody, if you've ever practiced forgiveness, that's the place to coach from. So no matter what the story is, if we can connect on that empathetic, I see you plane, I think that's that's kind of where the magic happens. And so coaching all different kinds of people, I think it's very refreshing for an executive to be like, can I just be John? Can I just be
Mhm.
Cindy? Can I just be myself? And can I bitch about something too? Like, can I say the traffic sucks? And can I say this employee's getting on my nerves? And can I say those things too? And so it's safety, I think.
I'm interested to know because you say you've been in the industry for 17 years, and you mentioned, hey, this was before there was like a weekend training session on how to be a life coach,
Mm.
right? And then you're also up against previous paradigms of what it means to be healthy, what wellness means, and then you've got maybe sometimes a competing reactive paradigm from the medical intervention.
Mhm.
And so how is your way of thinking, which I understand it to be seeing the whole person, how has that been, what's that experience been like integrating across, a broad spectrum of, let's call it experts and expertise? Because you mentioned you do some at home, functional medicine, some nutrition. So what's it been like to integrate over the last, you know, 15, 17 years?
Yeah, it's definitely changed. I mean, so much. Things are moving more and more rapidly all the time in the industry, as you know. And so I have seen so many changes in diets and, all these things, and obviously great new technology, new wearables, new science coming out. I mean, new ways to, tell people don't just get the basic lipid panel, ask for the advanced one, right? Like everything's always changing. And um, but I think that it's really simple if we just focus on, again, going back to the individual. You mentioned the maybe were you meaning like the traditional nautical medal? I encourage people to build a dream team, right? So I don't I'm an integrative health practitioner and a coach. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist. I am not. So building their dream team, I think integrating that and getting people to feel comfortable with that and reminding them it's okay. I have clients who have psychiatrists. I have clients who have, oncologists and primary care physicians and uh, physical therapists and personal trainers and their support team. So being able to help people to understand that we all need support. I didn't get here on my own. I got here because I knew that I wanted to be around people who knew what I didn't know. I wanted mentors. I wanted to be around people who I would say, that is so amazing. How did you do that? Because, when we all are at this level, we all stay at this level, right? We need that discrepancy to be like, what is that like? I want to try that. I want to feel that. I want to experience that. So into helping people to integrate all modalities and not poo-pooing on any of them. Because at the end of the day, if they feel well in their body and they're living a healthy life that feels good to them, maybe it is knitting or basket weaving or all the things that are becoming more popular now for anxiety, which is amazing, right?
Mm.
I have so many clients who will be on the phone with me and they're knitting and it's wonderful. And so I think integrating it, accepting it, and reminding them that I don't replace anybody. I am part of their dream team, whether it's 3 people or 10 people.
I had a guest on last week. His name is Dr. Daniel Stickler, and he actually is trained. He's a cardiologist, actually heart surgeon, and he got to a point where he's operating on these people. He's opening them up, and he's like, "This is preventable." And he has since uh, kind of been working, let's say, in the last few decades to, I guess, reframe medicine to N of one medicine and systems biology thinking, which is not so different from what you're talking about, right? It's so seeing the person as an integrated, holistic system, if you will.
Mhm,
And he's obviously heavy on the biologics, so there's the DNA and there's the bloods and there's the digital tracking, but he's also started to integrate the call it the mental side of things, like the meditation and the planning, the emotional side. So, relationship health, because, one of the biggest predictors of longevity and health span is the health of your relationships.
mhm,
And, then he also pointed to spirituality as well. And, it's funny. One of the things I said, well, how do you quantify that? And I don't think that he was trying to necessarily quantify it discreetly, but just really what he was seeing or what's seeing in the literature is, those who are connected to greater meaning and purpose, have much better health and longevity in the long run. And so when you think about your clients, is that something that you run into? Like, is there so I understand there's a certain stage of readiness of a client to to be engaged and to actually ask for help.
mhm,
And who I'm thinking about? I'm thinking of Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, right? And
mhm,
and so I really love a quote in his book, whereas I think it was on the epilogue of his book where I think he was giving a presentation on his book and why it's so important, that we're talking about is finding meaning. And he asked somebody to guess, somebody in the audience to guess, what the meaning of his life was, wherein they guessed, and they guessed rightly because he wrote it down. He's like, well, what gives my life meaning is helping other people find meaning. And so I wonder if because not everybody has had a coach, or not everybody listening has been a coach,
mhm,
perhaps not formally, but I would say actually probably in some informal way. If you have any kind of intimate relationship, there is some degree of coaching that goes on.
mhm,
I'm interested to know for you, I'm putting words in your mouth by saying that what gives you meaning is helping people have those aha moments. That's just a guess. You can confirm or deny that, but I'm gonna go on a limb and think, that is certainly something that drives you. And I'd love to know, what are those breakthroughs? What are those aha moments that happen in your time with your clients? And then what's the consequence of that?
mhm. Gosh, so many things came to my mind during that, but I am a Gemini, so before I answer that, I'm gonna tell you the trans theoretical model of change and Maslow's hierarchy of needs popped in my head, right?
Right, right.
Um, because of that getting to that place where you're learning, growing, securing, and then you have the gifts to give, right? It's like the 12th step of
Mm.
12-step program is uh, for so many people the most important one, because in you're demonstrating it, you're embodying it, you're acting it, right?
Mm.
It's not just learning it. So when we can get to a place where we are embodying, our nervous system feels safe, right? And choosing what we can. Obviously, life is life, and there's a million people that kind of come at us. But when we can live life by design instead of default, it's like we stop backpedaling and we stop saying, oh my God, how did that happen? Whether it was, how did I, allow that in the relationship again? Or how did I eat that pizza? Like, we're living life by design instead of default and backpedaling. And when people understand, they've been led to believe that they do not have a lot of choices, right? They're feeling the stress, the overwhelm. They go home, they microwave something, they stop at fast food. They don't recognize. So, helping people to realize how they are participating in their own, you know, crappy feelings or symptoms is not an easy conversation. But I will say, when somebody does come to me and we begin talking, and it could be, it's a very intuitive thing. So I don't have a script. I kind of go into session and pick up their energy and ask a few questions about, them to tell me about themselves and kind of expand on things. I think the biggest transformation happens for people when I ask the tough questions that they don't want to answer, right? It's pulling off the mask, it's vulnerability, uh, it's those kinds of questions that when they begin answering and they begin to get honest, because anybody can sit in front and have a conversation, but the honesty about what they're really after, what they are lacking in their life, what they want more of, they are so guarded with saying those things. Not everybody, right? Not everybody, but a large percentage of people are so guarded with saying those things because they're going to piss somebody off.
Mm.
If somebody knew this, that this is really how I feel or what I want. And so it's suppress, 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 and building that relationship. And hey, if somebody just says, hey, I'm here because I want to practice intermittent fasting and I want to get really great at it. Okay. That's fine too. But most things I've come to learn that I think is missing because I've been doing this, and not the longest of anybody, but long enough that I think something that's so often missed is the hormonal hierarchy pyramid,
Mm.
where we are living in a society where it's like, reach for this, grab for this, maybe this supplement, maybe if I just do 5 more reps, maybe if I buy this, maybe if I eat that, maybe if I get meals delivered to my house, maybe. And all of those things are kind of what I like to call tier 2 and tier 3. Even the labs are fabulous. They give education. They make you hold something in your hand that says, this is why I can't sleep. Okay.
Mhm.
This is what this is what no sleep is doing to my body. But then functional medicine, or me, take it to why.
Mhm.
And then we have to talk about relationships. And then we have to talk about, you're letting the baby in the bed and your spouse is pissed, or we have to talk about the snoring, or we have to talk about the caffeine at midnight, or we have to talk about the binging on social media till 3 a.m. All of those things. So it's like, here's the data, but let's talk about what's going on in your life. And so when I think about the hormonal hierarchy, it's a pyramid. And at the base of it, which always blows people's minds, is cortisol.
Mhm.
It's not the vitamin B complex. It's not the D3. It's not the fish oil. It's not the this and the that. And yes, those things absolutely have a place for deficiencies, no doubt. However, I am I am not doing them justice if I don't allow them the opportunity. You can't force somebody, but allow them the opportunity to address where their nervous system doesn't feel safe.
Mm.
And that could be not necessarily root chakra, like the ground's going to open up and swallow you up, but where do you not feel safe? Maybe it's, you don't want to bring that topic up again because you're avoiding a fight.
Mhm.
I have a client who had to overcome, and I've used this example before, but he was getting healthier and making good choices and showing up. And it's not always a win, you know, every session. Just showing up is the win, like meditation, just sitting on the mat for 10 minutes is a win, right? So it's just showing up and building that rapport. But he wanted to get up and exercise on Sunday mornings, and his wife felt she translated that into him not loving her or spending time with her because they used to just make, get donuts and make pancakes and eat in bed on Sunday
Mhm.
morning.
Mhm.
And so having those conversations, I find I would say probably 75% of my coaching is helping people to really be okay with giving language to what they're feeling without them feeling ugly or judging themselves, because we all have our things, right? So letting them say it in a safe space without feeling like a terrible person, and then saying, okay, again, pointing that finger, what can you do by you changing you? It's going to have this ripple effect on other people. There's this, there's this, there's this, and really helping them to craft a life that supports their vision of health and wellness, not mine, whatever it is they want more of. Well, that's a lot of what I do. And so people think, yeah, yeah, sure, you can get BHRT. Sure, you can take the supplement and you can get on levothyroxine if your doctor tells you you need it. And there's a good chance you don't. But if your doctor tells you you need it, okay, so you get on that. But what about the stress? That's at the base. And so I love bringing people, because I've always been drawn to the broken parts of people, and I don't know why that is. And I think that was something that I had to work on with myself, was not being the savior, not giving the fresh blood all the time, not, doing all the things, and recognizing that being a health coach is holding that space and giving somebody the tools. If they want to gobble it up, I've got tools from here to kingdom come
Mhm.
if they want it. And I read recently, Jeremy, it was a great quote. It said, health isn't for people who want it. It's not even for people who need it. It's for people who do it.
Mhm.
And I thought, yeah, there's some elements to that, barring crazy things. I'm not saying somebody can just literally get up out of a hospital bed and, walk away, but I'm saying that mindset of it's for people who do it. And the
Mhm.
heavy lifting's always in the beginning. It's never fun, but it's a lifestyle change. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. Went on and on.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's enlightening, and I think, I'm interested to hear, like, some of the, modalities, let's say, that you've used. I think, one of them, for example, that, you mentioned previously is this 52 ways to elevate wellness, right? So, making, I guess, wellness kind of bite-sized and incremental, because as you say, it's the win is not, necessarily the breakthrough that happens every session. The win is just showing up.
Mhm.
So, what kind of heuristics have you developed? Say 52 ways to elevate wellness and beyond, to kind of help people through this journey.
Right. Yeah. So there's so many of them, right? So doable health, we have a platform, we have technology, we have incentives built in there, we have a
Mm,
food diary, we have, we have a library of things they can read. So there's those tools. And then, I feel like sometimes I'm talking out both ends of my mouth, because it's like, get off social media, get on the app, but get off social media
mm,
and detox, right? So it's all of those things there that can help people. But right, 52 rituals to elevate wellness is an Oracle card deck that I published a couple year and a half ago. And you're exactly right. It's bite sized. It is, if our kid got a bad grade on something, but they tried, most people, I would like to believe people are generally kind, would be like, it's okay, buddy. You tried your best, like, let's figure it out. Maybe there's a retest you can take, or did something distract you while you were studying? Like, parenting, not punishing, right? So I think it's similar with coaching individuals, is reminding them of all those little wins, like I would even need as a kid, or even sometimes it's nice for adults to be reminded of, yeah, like, it didn't really turn out the way I thought it would, but I brought my best, and that's the most anybody can ask for. So So all the tools we have in the app, we have private sessions, we have circle master classes that people can join and feel connected in a group. Because I'll tell you, not everybody wants to share their story, but if they listen, they're doing it. They're
Mm.
doing the things behind the scenes, and we might not know it. I had a gentleman who fell asleep. We were presenting at an organization. This is probably 7 or 8 years ago, and he fell asleep in the front row. And who do you think lost 53 pounds in a year?
Mhm.
And we just never know. We just never know. And so it's the coaching, it's the groups, it's the app, it's the I personally like for my clients to not feel like I'm sitting across from a desk. I want them to feel like I'm sitting on the couch next to them. Okay.
Mhm.
And what I've had to learn over these last 17 years is how to manage my own energy, right? So when I'm not coaching, and I'm sure you're the same way, you do the things that fill you up and keep you healthy, right? Whether it's infrared sauna or ice baths or, walks alone. I mean, I love being alone in the woods and, going on trails and all that sort of stuff. And I love it with my friends too. But there's that balance. So to give it, you really have to make sure that you're giving it to yourself, or that frantic energy is going to be felt in sessions. And my prayer or intention, if you will, before every session is thank you, God, help me serve their highest good. And then
Mhm.
I clear the slate because I do not I want to get everything out of my head and coach from my head, assuming that I know what somebody needs, and really just get heart centered and do the quick breathing exercise and get heart centered so that I'm picking up everything they're not saying.
So somebody who has like, let's say deep immersion in life coaching, 17 years of it, you probably got, a good sense of what's coming. And so yeah, that is my question. Where is the future of coaching going with the integration of all these technologies, right? So, functional meds, you've got your DNA analysis, your blood analysis, you've got your digital trackers, you've got your groups. How do you see this going in terms of the confluence between, again, high tech and high touch?
I think there's a place for everything. And I absolutely love how somebody can find out, knowledge is really powerful. And so when somebody looks at their genetic report from sequencing their genome, I mean, it it's powerful and it helps them to kind of activate something within them that maybe was stagnant for so long. When somebody sees functional labs, somebody sees this data, I think it's really incredible more and more and more that we're able to provide and tie it to health. Whereas before it was just like, what's your ancestry, right? I
Hmm.
mean,
Hmm.
and so the ability to be able to do that, I think, is fabulous. And will it be well received everywhere? No, there's always this side of the camp, right? But you know what? That doesn't matter. It's there for the people who want it, and the people who want it are growing more and more and more. And I think we're maybe destigmatizing asking for help with all the mental health awareness, with all the, everything that we've all been through as a collective through COVID. Like we've all been through something together. And so hopefully I see two ends of the same stick, less empathy and more empathy.
Hmm.
And I see people who are just like so in their own heads and in their own world. And it's just like but then you recognize as an empathetic person, you don't tap into that person and you're not going to change them. So you continue to find your people. So I think there's space for everybody. And I think it's exciting. I think as long as it doesn't become what I think makes me a little bit nervous, and maybe I don't know how you feel about this. I'd love to know how you feel about this. Remember back in the day, and still to a degree today, when we were told, "Don't step on the scale every day, it's not good."
Hmm.
Changes your mood right away, right? You
Hmm.
might wake up feeling good, you step on the scale and you're like, "Oh, geez," right? So I think with all the wearables and all the data and all the pings and dings and rings and all that stuff, do they serve a purpose? Absolutely. But I feel like we have to learn to take that outsourcing of, am I good today? Did I
Mhm.
sleep? Am I hungry? Did I, right? And bring it back to those higher faculties that we have just outsourced. Tell me that I'm good. Tell me that I'm healthy. Tell me that I'm worthy. Tell me that, just all the data. So I think I kind of look at it as training wheels that
Mhm.
can be very useful, because then I know, based on how I feel when I wake up, I know what my aura ring is going to say, right? I know I maybe had an extra glass of wine or something and I didn't sleep as great. My heart rate variability wasn't as good. So you learn, but it's like, pay attention to the feelings in in your body and your symptoms, and don't outsource it to all these wearables. They're helpful, but I think they can be also detrimental.
Yeah, I think there's a helpful balance, and so therefore probably a healthful balance of these digital trackers. It's kind of like if you were to get like a dietitian or a food coach, one of the first things they would say is like, keep a journal of your food and do 3 weekdays and one weekend, right? And then
Mhm.
let's look at it together.
Mhm.
And the point of it is, I think, to bring a little more intention to something that has probably become unintentional for various reasons: psychological, exposure to really good marketing, accessibility, whatever it is. But certainly there's a lot of unconscious eating. And I think that and so then, you review the result with your coach and you're like, oh, okay, wow, as it turns out, on the weekend, I don't eat in the morning, and I thought I ate less, but it turns out I eat 2 and 3 times servings towards the end of the day. Well, okay, if my goal is weight loss or my goal is better sleep, that's an important behavior to understand. It's the same thing with any of these trackers. Like you mentioned, the Aura Ring. I mean, I've spent time, because I've worked with a lot of, high performance athletes where, you want to know these things because it's the sum of marginal gains that, effectively translates into hundredths of a second off of your, final 100-meter time, which could mean the difference between first and fourth medal. And
Huge,
so,
huge, right.
you're very highly tuned at that point, and it's a different objective altogether than, you know balancing your social emotional planes, or, just getting into a healthy range, let's say. But nevertheless, like, for just the sake of my own curiosity, I, was strapped up with all kinds of different monitors, Auras, Apple Watches, Samsung, Garmin, you name it. I've tried them, and it became really just an exercise of curiosity. Like, well, how is this useful? And that's what I would ask myself time and time again: is how is this actually useful today? Other than it's kind of cool to track. And I'll tell you where it became useful was in the, perspectival analysis, where it's like, oh, like, actually there's something strange that seems to happen every Wednesday, or wow, the circadian rhythm, the double peak throughout the day, that's actually a real thing. And, I'm going to change how I schedule my more demanding tasks to coincide with the heart rate variability that actually fluctuates during the day. It's not a single metric at all. Oh, the heart rate variability or increased resting heart rate, decrease sleep quality with just one drink. So it's like, hey, is that one drink worth it? Sometimes the answer is yes, because you're celebrating your daughter's wedding, right?
Right.
So there's I think a certain utility to quantified self. But I have a friend who, highly tuned athlete. The way he gets his heart rate is he actually checks it every morning with his fingers on his pulse.
Mm.
And that in and of itself is like a minute of intention to actually check in and see how you feel. So I think there is, for people who have had basically zero exposure to what it feels like to feel good, I think these training wheels are, a good start to say, hey, like, here's how many calories you're taking on, and here's how many you're burning, and here's your healthy resting heart rate, and here's the healthy resting heart rate of somebody, in your age range, let's say.
Right.
So I think the reference ranges are good conversation starters. I guess the question
Mhm.
is who are you having the conversation with, and who's coaching you,
Right.
toward the end. So,
And
even. Mhm. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say people will need it as long as they need to. It's not for me to say it's time to give it up, right? Like
Yeah.
I had someone recently who got off these really, the Starbucks drink with like 1 million calories and all the
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
because she started working out and she saw what it takes to burn 350 calories, right?
Right.
So, she was like, she made the connection. And so that's the intuitiveness. Now she knows. And that, you know, data was able uh, to help her make that decision. So very useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, you're a highly experienced professional. What would you say to aspiring professionals entering into, this field? Someone who is really passionate about coaching, wants to be of service. What's the best way to start, and what are the kind of obstacles and elixirs, if you will, to a successful career as a life coach?
hmm I would say that yes, certification is important. I'm certified back from 2007. Holistic health coach. That was the first one. I flew up to New York every month to get that certification. That was before things were online, but I'm proud to say I'm older than the internet and I'm older than
Mhm.
Google. So
Uh,
whatever. But so, and then obviously, and then I became a functional medicine certified health coach, and then I got board certified. So, board certification is a really great opportunity to continue learning and get your CEUs and stay current in the field. And so, I think certification is good. But I'll also say I've met a lot of coaches who are certified and if I was sitting on the other side of the table from them, I wouldn't open up at all. So
mm,
people want to feel comfortable. And the truth of the matter is that you don't have to know everything. Over the years, you learn, you grow, and you're okay with what you don't know. And then you say, hey, Jeremy, tell me about what you do. Cause I'm not a genetics expert, right? I don't have a PhD in that. I'm not. So you get comfortable with asking for help to find a mentor or two. What is a mentor? Somebody who you admire what they're building and creating and has the time to share with you and to kind of brainstorm with you. So I think it's important to have a mentor. I've had wonderful mentors in my life. Wonderful.
mm,
And I think the most important thing is there was a time when I felt I had to know everything. But the truth of the matter is, maybe the sessions are a little bit intuitive slash, I don't want to say psychic, but the sessions are very energy driven, I should say, not energetic, my sessions. And I think the biggest thing that gets in a coach's way is they have not allowed themselves to crumble. They have not addressed where they have felt betrayed. They have not they are picture perfect, working out with the smoothie and the great family and the family vacations. And yes, to all of those things. And I'm not saying you can't have this beautiful life. All I'm saying is for a coach to be able to sit there, for me to hold space with you, I have to be real or you're not going to feel it. And to do the work on themselves and ask themselves, am I coaching from the emotion that the person is feeling? Am I coaching from, can I remember feeling betrayed? Maybe not in that way, but I can remember feeling betrayed. Coaching from that space is the most important thing because there are a million coaches out there and people can look for information online. They can see why a carnivore diet might be great. They can see why a vegan diet might be great. And there's everything online, but it's somebody who's going to bring that glue together and anchor them into always bringing it back to what do you want?
mm,
If a category 5 hurricane comes and it takes your car and your boat or anything you've got, who are you standing there naked with 1,000 other people who've just come out on their lawn? The storm is past and everybody's the same. What do you want? And that's a challenging question for someone to answer. But I encourage coaches to do the work on themselves. And no matter what it looks like, Don't judge it, and just be honest with yourself. And that's what makes a very transformative coach. It's not the certification. I didn't want to get all the certifications. I thought I would, but I'm not, I love learning, but not because I want the certification. I don't hang them up because in session, I want the person to feel Jeanine's energy. And yes, the certifications matter. So it's about, authenticity is a word that's thrown around all the time, but it really is about being authentic and not being perfect, because you will get more transformation with your clients if they can see that you're a living, breathing person that also has to say no to the cookies 3 times. You're choosing your future instead of your past.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just letting go of everything you thought you were supposed to be and embodying the change that you wish to see in your clients.
Amazing. We had a conversation at the top of the call, my DNA of Things preamble, right? And so there are the 3 questions. So what's the key takeaway here? What's the one thing that people have to hear? Number 2 is who needs to hear it? And number 3 is who absolutely has to be a guest on the DNA of Things?
So anybody who feels the duality of their head, their heart, and their body not aligned, right? Because you could be sitting in a room and your mind is somewhere else, your body's here, and your heart's over there, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who's misaligned, which is a lot of us at different points in life, right? Because life is not linear. But if you feel misaligned, if you feel scripted, if you feel, like I said, I have coached the CEO with the private jet and employees in 13 countries, all the way down to somebody who's, living a much more modest life, but equally they have the same heart, the same desires to pay the bills, to be there for their kids. And so I think it's for anybody also who feels categorically dismissed by the system because they have a doctor who's rolling their eyes. I mean, that happens all the time. Maybe they want to know a little bit more about what's going on under the hood, right? Inside, the stress hormones, the things like that. So, and then what was the last question?
Who absolutely has to be a guest on the DNA of Things?
Well, I'm going to take a wild shot here, and it's going to
Mm.
be probably very unconventional. I can come up with a lot of people, but when I read the question and then I read it again, I thought of my daughter
Hmm.
because being my son is both my kids live in Boston, and my daughter's a senior in college. And I have seen these kids are going through a lot. We
Hmm.
know that we are, as adults, are going through a lot. These kids are going through a lot. And I've seen her be so challenged in every way living in a big city away from family. I'm in North Carolina, and my son just moved there a few weeks ago. So for 3 years, she was alone up there. But I've seen how much sovereignty and jurisdiction it has taken for her to honor who she is around this massive influx of just options. And the girl who's, in the 2 by 2 seeming dorm room trying to make something healthy with the bathroom down the hall and nothing but, a dingy old microwave in there, and trying to do all these things and looking online and looking at the food that's in the cafeteria that day and saying no to going out at 10 o'clock at night, with people that she doesn't know only because she likes to rely on herself, right? She doesn't want to rely on someone. So all the things that go into the way I live, when I look at her and I see how she's living, I'm just she's one of my biggest heroes because it has not been an easy ride for her at all, but she recalibrates and she course corrects and she always comes back to herself. And it's not that way in these schools. There's suicides, there's all sorts of things, and kids feel alone. And some of them, especially in Boston, some of these kids haven't been home overseas for years. They
Wow.
don't get, so there's a lot. And to do it under those circumstances has amazed me, is how she's done it.
Amazing. And so that's Lily.
That's Lily.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll lean on you for an introduction and would love to hear more about the the student life. I've actually done some work with university students, and I remember my postdoc days at this is at Cornell in Ithaca, and it was the year where there were actually ton of stress, ton of suicides. So that students they're there on their full scholarships. They go and they bomb an exam, and then they're walking home. They got to cross these suspension bridges, and somehow they get it in their mind that they'd be better off dead rather than face the consequences of a failing grade. So yeah, the stress is real, and it's layered, and it's across ironically different stages of our growth where we're trying to grow. So speaking of growth, if people are interested to learn more on you and what you do at Doable and getting in touch, what's the best way that folks could reach out and explore the idea of getting a life coach?
Excellent. Yeah. So, the whole Doable name is, we like to make health doable. We like to make, people always say, I want something doable, right? And so it's doable.com with 2 O's. And we focus on employees and individuals needing less healthcare, right? Get them healthy, they'll need less healthcare. But then the other part of our organization is called Bull Benefits, bullbenefits.com, because we're near Durham. And that is our health insurance brokers. And so it's not uncommon for that part of our business to find $100,000 mistakes that companies are about to pay insurance companies for.
Right.
So, we have partners and we have programs that we utilize to get into the weeds and be like, wow, like, it's not uncommon, 100,000, 300,000 savings on insurance. And so that's really interesting. That's really great too. So Bull Benefits and doable.com, and my email address is on there. It's Jeanine@doable.com. And so, yeah, I'm happy to support anybody who has questions, and we're all walking each other home, and it's not a competition. There's room for everybody. There's abundance for everybody. And it's a beautiful opportunity. I'm grateful for the work that I get to do.
What a beautiful statement. It was wonderful to walk home with you today, Jeanine. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right. What an enlightening conversation with Jeanine Finelli. Today's episode reminded us that true health begins with self-awareness and the courage to design a life that aligns with our values. Whether it's building a supportive team, setting boundaries, or simply showing up for ourselves every day, Jeanine's message is clear. Empowerment starts within. We learned the power of holding space for others and why being vulnerable is often the gateway to healing and personal growth. If today's conversation inspired you, share it with someone who could benefit from this wisdom. Let's help more people realize that health isn't about quick fixes, it's about small intentional steps we take toward living in harmony with our mind, body, and soul. Thank you for joining us on the DNA of Things. Please stay tuned for more stories that empower you to unlock your full